When I left office, that was the lowest point, and that comes right from the government services, comes right out of Border Patrol. Take a look at that. So that arrow is the lowest amount of illegal immigration ever in recorded history into our country. And then the worst president in the history of our country took over. And look what happened to our country. Probably 20 million people.
I want to see the footage. I want to see. Stop playing. We want to see the
effectiveness of the security tasked with protecting the former president. As WRAL's Laura Levine reports, the probe has already highlighted a series of failures that allowed the gunman to breach security and open fire at the rally.
Secret Service now under fire after former president.
That's the next step. But through planning and good intelligence gathering and strong security strategies and protocols, they first and foremost have to prevent this from happening.
This is former FBI Assistant Director and former
Dasha Burns was there as well, our colleague at the rally on Saturday, standing in the press area near the former president. Dasha, good morning. Tell us what you saw last night.
Yeah, Willie, Savannah, good morning. We've all covered shootings as part of this job. It's unfortunately become something familiar. We race to the scene of the tragedy and the aftermath. What's less familiar is actually witnessing the moments of tragedy firsthand. And Willie, Savannah, that's what my team and I experienced last night. We were on the press risers, which were positioned in the center of the venue as usual, just behind the seated section of the audience. We were just finishing up filming a stand-up as the former president began his speech. Again, like usual, my producer Bianca and I started to walk down the stairs to grab our laptops when suddenly we heard that sound that you now hear in the video we played over and over again, those loud cracking pops. We, like many that we interviewed afterwards, we initially thought it might be fireworks. Sometimes Trump events have pyrotechnics, but when those sounds kept going and when Mr. Trump stopped speaking, that's when Bianca and I took cover behind some stage equipment, initially thinking just as a precaution, right? And we experienced that rapid roller coaster of emotion alongside the crowd. It went from being a standard political event, people were cheering, buying merchandise and food, people were dancing, to YMCA, the song that usually comes on just before the former president makes his entrance. Then it transitioned to confusion and chaos as those shots rang out, people trying to figure out what that sound was. And then that fear settled in as we realized this could really be gunshots. We were taking cover, Bianca and I, when we heard those cheers from the crowd as the former president raised his fist in the air with blood on his face and was taken to safety by Secret Service. In those moments, just immediately afterwards, for anyone who wasn't near those who were injured, one ultimately killed, it wasn't immediately clear how dangerous or deadly the situation was. Some in the crowd began to leave the scene, but
hey, it's Jay Shetty.
Zeroing in on a motive, but law enforcement says the shooter in the attempted assassination of former President Trump used an AR-style semi-automatic rifle. He was about 410 feet away from where former President Trump was speaking. The suspect was shot and killed by Secret Service agents seconds after shots were fired, and we learned today that the gun was legally purchased by and registered to the shooter's father. Investigators have many more questions, and of course on Capitol Hill, they are talking about launching an investigation into the Secret Service. Let's bring in CBS's Nicole Skenga. And Nicole, what did we learn today from the FBI who's leading this investigation?
Yeah, this investigation is being treated as domestic terror, this attempt on the former president's life. The shooter acted alone, according to authorities, who point out this is in its very early stages. This investigation remains ongoing. But at this time, no mental health record by the gunman, no criminal history, no derogatory information known by law enforcement. The biggest unknown here, motive. CBS News has has learned that the shooter here was a bit of a gun fanatic. In fact, he was part of at least one gun club in recent years. The t-shirt he was wearing during the attacks that unfolded yesterday boasted of a popular firearm YouTube channel. He was described by some of his friends as a shy loner, some of his classmates as someone who was more popular, a bit of a mystery around what he was like at school when he graduated just 2 years ago. Everyone's seemingly shocked by the events that unfolded. Moving forward, law enforcement currently transporting all of the evidence 300 miles southeast to FBI laboratories in Quantico, where they will go through the gunman's phone, trying to unlock it right now. They'll also look at the explosive materials, those bomb materials that were found today in the gunman's residence, as well as in his vehicle. Those are being described by law enforcement officials as rudimentary. You mentioned the AR-style weapon, the rifle that was used by the gunman. Of course, ATF and FBI tracing that gun back to the shooter's father. And in the coming days, there will be more interviews. We're told the family is cooperating, but trying to determine whether the gun was stolen by the gunman from his father, or whether it was willingly given, perhaps a sign of future charges, Nora.
Nicole Skenga, thank you. I want to bring in CBS News' Scott McFarland because he was there at the rally when that shooting occurred. And Scott, what are some of the questions that you have because you witnessed this and you have seen the crime scene today?
Oh, we have a few, Nora. Let's start with what's happening on site right now. This shooting happened at a rally held at a family fair center where there's usually a farm show or a family picnic. Thousands of people were there, Nora, but we all were ordered out minutes after the shooting, told to leave our stuff in place, just get out. It's like somebody hit the pause button on that site as the FBI and investigators combed through it looking for some type of answers, some type of evidence. But the question so many people have, including those of us who were in the rafters, how did such a monumental, unequivocal failure happen that what was supposed to be a uniquely safe event would be the site of horror? Linda Green got here real early yesterday. She wanted one of those good seats up front. And she told us she has that question too. Who let her and the others down?
I was like, why weren't they on that guy? If I heard that they had actually gone up on the roof, that somebody had seen, some spectators seen him going up on the roof, why didn't they like get on it? And there were people talking about it, and he was like, well, we told them and no one listened. So where is the Secret Service when you need them, if we're there for protection?
You'd like some answers.
I'd like to have a lot of answers.
As the hours go by, these police barricades grow larger and wider. This is a unique, historic criminal investigation, and it's still underway, Nora.
And Scott, you cover Congress already. There are calls to bring the head of the Secret Service up to Capitol Hill to answer some of the questions by these lawmakers.
So what's most striking, Nora, is there are bipartisan calls for an investigation into this. Congress doesn't do much of anything bipartisan anymore, especially not right now. But everybody wants to know who let whom down, what should have been done that wasn't done, and what changes need to be made, even if Congress has to order them and fund them to prevent anything close to this from happening in the future.
Scott McFarland, thank you. I want to bring in CBS News consultant and former deputy director of the Secret Service, A.T. Smith. A.T., so good to have you. Was this a massive security failure? How was that shooter able to get so close?
That'll be determined with the investigation that the FBI is doing, but obviously there is no explanation whatsoever for how an individual was able to get on top of a building and be that close with a long rifle.
We've got passion, we've got determination.
Attempted assassination of former President Donald Trump captured in these images showing him clutching his right ear with blood dripping down his face as Secret Service surrounds him, ushering him to safety. It happened moments into the rally held at a farm show in Butler County Saturday afternoon.
The assassination attempt on the former president, Donald Trump, last night was absolutely unacceptable and tragic.
Renee White stood behind Trump in shock.
Everything was so surreal. It was like I was having an out-of-body experience.
50-year-old Corey Comparatore was killed as he stood on stage left behind Trump. 2 others were critically wounded. The suspected shooter, now identified as 20-year-old Thomas Matthew Crooks, was a registered Republican who lives in a suburb of Pittsburgh. He was killed by the Secret Service after officials say he fired at least 8 rounds from an AR-style rifle perched on an adjacent building.
Being on the ground, crawling, with gunfire going over top.
Valerie Fennell's yard backs up to the building, just 300 yards away. That is where she watched the rally. She was briefly separated from her family, including her adult son, who saw Crooks.
He did see the shooter on the roof.
ABC News has learned the gun recovered at the scene was legally purchased by Crooks' father. Authorities are also testing concerning items discovered in a vehicle connected to Crooks to see if they are explosive devices. It was found parked near the rally. The FBI will lead the investigation into how the shooter was able to gain access. The former president was treated at a local medical center and confirmed the bullet pierced the upper part of his right ear. He released a statement saying in part, "We pray for the recovery of those who were wounded and hold in our hearts the memory of the citizen who was so horribly killed. In this moment, it is more important than ever that we stand united." President Biden spoke to Trump last night and addressed the nation again today.
There's no place in America for this kind of violence, or any violence for that matter.
I'm probably going to want to move. Because it's going to be very hard sitting on my deck in what was a beautiful, peaceful backyard. And that poor gentleman lost his life.
Watch breaking news on YouTube. Subscribe to ABC7 Chicago.
Something to say.
The real crazy thought is, President Trump missed that bullet by an angel's breath. He might have been on stage with his vice president as well. Not only could the leader of the Republican Party have been killed tonight, but also his anointed successor.
I was standing there, and all of a sudden it sounds like firecrackers going off. But then I heard the shots, and then all of a sudden somebody hollers, "Get down on the ground," and everybody's going down on the ground as low as they can get. Then the Secret Service comes running up through and says, "Everybody out, get out of here now." And they ushered us out of the area.
Everybody stood together and everybody screamed out the Father's Prayer and everybody prayed together. That was amazing. That was something that was beautiful. That was really cool. Everyone together in the stands praying.
Horrifying. I mean, the shot, and the stuff was coming off the side. For people to do that, I don't know. It's just, it's stunning. It's absolutely stunning. It's just going to drive people to even be more for him. Especially when that picture comes out.
I'm very upset. I can't say for sure who's behind this, but I'll tell you what. It's only going to cause more division in this country because of the people that support President Trump.
And so when those first few bullet noises happened, there were people all around me, including myself, that thought that this was a firework or a BB gun, that it wasn't an actual shooting event. But as they kept coming, everyone kind of really quickly hit the floor, including the president. And it was a little bit of a dazed situation at that point, as we kind of missed him. There is that picture about immigration that had to do with the difference between President Biden's record in when it came to the border versus his. And thank God for that chart, because I think it's because of his head turning left and right as he was explaining the things that were on that chart that first bullet actually missed him. There is that picture of one of the bullets whizzing by his head that one of the New York Times reporters got. I think the only reason that he didn't get hit today is because that chart was on the television and he was turning his head. president was maybe at 2 o'clock to my right. I turned to my left at 10 o'clock, about 40 feet away. In the bleachers, it was really clear that something was going their own personal safety. They were worried about his. Yeah, so everyone had to go through metal detectors. There was a long line to take you seriously and say, I can be the person who stopped Hitler in his tracks. And so it's a clarifying moment on that front.
Sure. Basically, what happens is a protective advance is done for anywhere between 5 and 7 days before the event. The detail will work with the local Secret Service office in that area to help liaise with state, local, and federal partners in that area to help us, the Secret Service, develop a.
Hey, this is gonna make him a hero, bro. Name a time in history where an individual who was running for office or was in office and had an attempt on their life did not succeed in the election. He's a felon and he'd have been shot. Share, like, subscribe.